What if the reason things haven't fully landed yet is because you're still trying to build a miraculous life from a survival state of mind? Let me be honest with you. When I had my biggest shift, it wasn't during a high or after a win. It was one of it was one of my lowest moments, y'all, I ever had. I had a point where I truly felt like I couldn't take any more and everything around me felt heavy. The people, expectations, pressure, decisions. I was so tired of being the strong one, being the one to figure it out, trying to act like I was okay when I knew I wasn't. So one night in 2024, April of 2024 to be exact, I booked a hotel room just to get away, and I didn't tell anyone except my mother. I just needed space to breathe that night. And when I got there, I completely broke down. I cried, I prayed, I kept saying over and over, God, please cover me, please cover me, please cover me, because I didn't even know what I was asking for. I just knew I had nothing in me left to fix. That was the night I fully surrendered. And the very next morning, I woke up to 3 interviews, all remote, all paying 6 figures. And listen, it wasn't a coincidence, y'all. That was the exact moment of my life started shifting. And I know now it's because I finally got out of my own way. I stopped controlling and started allowing. I stopped obsessing over the how and got honest about the fact that I was tired of doing it all alone in survival mode with nothing left in my tank. That's what I mean when I say a quantum leap isn't some flashy miracle. And we're going to talk about that today. It's what happens when your identity changes from the inside out, when you stop showing up as the version of who you're just trying to stay afloat from and start moving like someone who's ready to be held. That shift has nothing to do with effort. It has everything to do with energetic permission. And I don't regret any of it because that night birthed a version of me that's not operating from panic or pressure anymore. After a series of stressful nights, tears, and panic attacks, I became clear, calm, and no longer needed to over-explain myself. That's the blueprint I'm giving you in today's episode. Not because I want you to repeat my breakdown, but because you don't have to. I'm showing you how to shift without the spiral if you want. Some people want the spiral because it's a grounding point, but you don't have to go through it to get through it if you don't want to. You can access that version of yourself right now, before the burnout, before the collapse. You can surrender without suffering. That's the part that no one talks about and what we're going to discuss here today.
She's not just a podcast host. She's a movement.
Manda Lee is teaching people how to break cycles and build real wealth, mentally, financially, and spiritually.
People all over the world are waking up to her message.
Wired to be Rich isn't just a podcast, it's a mindset shift.
She makes you believe again in yourself, in your power, and your ability to actually have the life you always known was meant for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Manda Lee, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Balance and Destiny, and this is Wired to be Rich.
When you are in the middle of seeing the fruits of your labor, it might feel like things are taking too long or like you're in some kind of holding pattern. But I'm here to tell you that what's really happening is you're still shifting. You're not being tested. I don't want to say that, because what's actually happening is that you're being aligned. And a lot of times what delays the leap isn't the universe or the opportunity. It's the fact that you're still toggling between 2 different versions of yourself. There's a part of you that says, I'm ready. And then there's a part that still second guesses if you can even achieve what you're asking for. That gap is what slows everything down. Wealth, peace, love, and visibility are things that come in when you actually feel safe enough to hold them. And a lot of us have been taught how to chase those things, but not how to feel calm when we receive them. That's why we sabotage and play small. That's why we manifest, quote unquote, something and then panic when it starts to come in. So instead of asking, why isn't it happening yet? The better question is, do I actually feel safe in the version of life I say I want? Because if your nervous system feels like abundance is a threat, like you'll lose it, mess it up, or won't be able to sustain it, it will find a way to push it away. And I'm not saying that to scare you or anything. I'm saying it so you can stop blaming timing and start looking at how your body and your mind are wired to respond to expansion. One thing I tell my listeners when they reach out for actionable advice is to start checking in with yourself in small ways. How do you react when something good happens? Do you downplay it or do you naturally receive it? Do you make decisions from peace or from pressure? Is your tone rushed, apologetic, unsure, or is it calm and grounded, even when things aren't perfect or clear? I want you to start there. You don't need to fake confidence with yourself. You just have to create safety in your own energy. And once that clicks, things start to move because they're not waiting on the perfect plan. They're waiting on you to feel ready enough to stay in the room once they arrive. One of the biggest mistakes people make is overthinking that the very thing they already know they're supposed to do. You'll feel something in your gut, maybe an idea, a shift, a decision, and then immediately start talking yourself out of it. You'll weigh it against what makes sense. You'll look for data, timelines, and signs, and you'll ask everybody around you what they think. And before you know it, the moment has passed. They don't call it 15 minutes of fame for nothing, y'all. That's the cost of filtering your intuition through fear. Most of us were raised in survival mode, taught to be realistic, cautious, and calculated. And to some degree, that did serve a purpose. But when you're building a life that's different from anything you've ever seen, logic can only take you so far. You're not building from the past anymore. You're building from a future you never touched yet. And no one around you has touched yet. And that requires a different kind of trust within yourself, okay? You have to be 10 toes down for yourself and your beliefs. And when I started making moves that changed everything, it wasn't because I had proof it will work. It was because something in me shifted. I just knew. I trusted myself, not because of evidence, but because of energy. And every time I tried to run those moments through an old mental filter, through logic, fear, or approval seeking, I stalled every time. So here's what I know now. The life I'm building doesn't need to make sense to anyone. It just needs to feel aligned to me. And honestly, most of the best decisions I've ever made started with a feeling and not a fact. I'm going to be real with you. Just a quiet voice that said, do it anyway. So next time you feel the nudge to move, apply for something, post the content, say no, or say yes. Notice your very first instinct and then notice what immediately follows it. Is it a grounded yes, or does your mind start listing reasons you should wait? That's the moment where your life shifts or stays the same. And you're not crazy for wanting more. You're just ready to stop shrinking what you feel in your body into something the world can label. Your next level won't arrive when it makes sense. It'll arrive when you stop needing it to. Most people think big change comes from big moments. I was one of those people. Raise your hands if you were one. Let's be honest on this platform, okay? Because in reality, it's built on what you repeat. The way you start your mornings, the way you make decisions when no one's watching, the way you respond when nothing seems to be working, the things you think about, the things you fixate on. And what makes a difference is you keep going anyway. You tell yourself, those thoughts are not my thoughts. These feelings are not my feelings. This reality is not my reality. Discipline isn't about doing more. It's about moving with intention consistently. It's about asking yourself, what habits, thoughts, and actions actually match where I say I'm going? And then being honest about whether your day-to-day reflects that. It doesn't matter how big your goals are. If your patterns keep defaulting to the same baseline, the real shift happens when you choose structure, not as a punishment, but as a form of alignment. This is the part where most people back out because it feels slow and it feels very quiet and you don't really have anything. If someone was to walk up to you and say, well, what are you doing with your life right now? When you're in that in between, you don't have an answer. You can't sit up and say, I'm building an empire. They're going to ask you so many questions that you don't have the answer to yet because what you do have is intuition and you have trust and you have faith. It's not a glamorous time, but the truth is timelines shift when your behavior stops waiting for motivation and starts reflecting who you've already decided to become. It's one thing to take a leap. It's another thing to stay grounded after you do. The initial decision to take control of your life feels exciting. There's adrenaline, vision, momentum. But after the leap, what you're left with is your habits, your systems, your energy, and your capacity. And if those things don't match the version of your life you're trying to build, the leap won't stick. It'll feel like chaos, not expansion. You'll feel like you don't know what you're doing. And it won't feel like a comfortable, I don't know what I'm doing. You'll feel all over the place. That's the difference between a quick breakthrough and a sustainable shift. A lot of people know how to make bold moves, but very few know how to maintain them. And that's not about effort, it's about structure. When I started landing in my new season, I realized that what would determine my success wasn't just my goals, it was my ability to support them in real time. That meant checking everything: how I manage my calendar, how I protect my focus, how I eat, how I rest, who I talk to, how I spend my downtime, and how honest I'm being about what drains me. Because at a certain point, your environment either becomes a container for the next level or a leak that keeps pulling you backwards. This isn't about perfection, it's about capacity, people. A regulated nervous system, a predictable schedule, clean boundaries, energy that can stretch without snapping. You don't have to live in monk mode, but you do need a lifestyle that can hold what you're asking for without burning you out or making you resent it. One of the greatest things that I learned is that you are not doing this alone. You are doing it just for you, and that's all that matters. You're doing it for you. You don't have to have an explanation. You don't have to have an answer. You don't need validation. You don't need anyone to see your vision with you. You're doing it for you. The further I go, the more I realize this isn't about me hitting goals. This is about me walking out a blueprint that someone else is silently watching. Every time I stretch, show up, stay consistent, or choose alignment over comfort, it doesn't just shift my life, it sends a signal out. Whether I know it or not, someone else is watching and thinking, if she can do it, maybe I can too. And you're 100% right. That's why I no longer see this as some hyper independent self-made journey. Yes, I've made sacrifices. Yes, I've moved alone at times, but I've been led by something deeper, by something greater, by something more powerful. I've been supported by intuition, guided by timing, and shaped by moments that had nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with trust. And when I look at the bigger picture, I understand now that this path I'm on is not just about success. It's about showing what's possible. It's about creating access, not just achievement. You don't have to be loud to lead. You don't have to be famous to shift something in your lineage. But you do have to keep moving. Because the more you lean into your own alignment, the more people around you start asking different questions about what's possible for them. And sometimes you'll never even know the impact you've made. You won't always get the thank yous or the acknowledgement. But that's not why you do it. You do it because you've been called to move differently, to trust more deeply, to build what doesn't yet exist. And whether you know it or not, your decision to keep going is making the road easier for someone else. Your consistency becomes clarity for someone who's still confused. Your peace becomes proof for someone who's still in chaos. Your life becomes evidence that the leap is worth it. Because it's not about being perfect, like I said earlier. It's about being available to purpose, to growth, to the version of your life that won't require you to shrink in order to be successful. The moment you stop trying to do it all alone and realize you were never meant to, that's when real alignment begins. You are being guided, and you are guiding without even trying. To close out, I want to leave you with this. I know what it's like to hold a vision that no one else fully understands. Okay, I do. To feel where you're going so clearly that it almost feels frustrating to still be in conversations, environments, or dynamics that reflect a version of you that you've already outgrown. But I've also learned this. When you stop asking for validation and start honoring what you already know, things begin to shift. Not always instantly, but consistently, quietly, and powerfully. The universe doesn't respond to the version of you that's hoping to be chosen. It responds to the version that's already chosen themselves, internally, energetically, and without apology. So yes, some people will misread your clarity as arrogance. Some will call your stillness avoidance. Some will see your alignment and assume you're lucky, and that's fine. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're moving the way you are. You're not here to convince people you're evolving. You're here to live the result of what alignment makes possible. So let them talk and let them watch. Let them stay in conversations you no longer need to be a part of. Because the real conversation or the real shifts happen when you stop translating your vision for people who were never meant to walk it with you and start embodying it for yourself. The leap isn't about being seen. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to understand in order to move forward. And once you land there, everything that's meant for you starts landing too. Thank you for listening to Wired to be Rich. If this episode hit something real for you, share it with someone who's been questioning their next move. And if you're in the middle of your own leap, know this. You're not crazy. You're just ahead of your timeline. And soon, reality will catch up. Until next time, keep building from alignment. You're not waiting on anything because you're becoming it. I will see y'all next Tuesday. Bye.